There are different forms of prayer we use as Catholics, the Masses of prayer. There's all kinds of prayers, meditation, contemplation, the rosary, adoration. But there's a important part of the Mass where we have petitions. And that's what, most people do, especially children. When they pray, they ask for things. We ask for blessings, we ask for cures, we ask for salvation, we ask for healing. These are petitions. And we were talking to this, and actually Father Tom Chamberlain was the priest at Our Lady of Guadalupe. He was on retreat with us. And he had an interesting reflection on that. He goes, when we make petitions to God, he answers those in one of three ways. He either answers yes. Sometimes he answers yes. Sometimes he answers no. Sometimes he answers, you have got to be kidding. Now, I think this is a common sentiment that God has and that we have for requests that God gives us. When he approaches us, we might say, you've got to be kidding. I think it's the sentiment today with Jesus' baptism, because John the Baptist is doing what John the Baptist does, but he knows who Jesus is. And he sees him coming. In all the Gospels, he sees him coming. And then Jesus asks him for something that seems counterintuitive, unreasonable, a bit too much. Would you baptize me? To which John the Baptist, understandably shocked, says, you should be baptizing me. You have got to be kidding. I'm supposed to baptize the Lamb of God? To which Jesus responds in a way, yes, I'm serious. I'm not kidding. There's a reason for this. This is important. And of course, Jesus was not changed in his baptism, but the water was. The world was changed because it is important. Something happened to us, the world, and something happened to all of you, happened to me at our baptism. But back to you got to be kidding me. I think this is a sentiment we hear all the way through salvation history when God approaches, especially his prophets and friends, his apostles. When he went to Abraham and asked him to sacrifice his own son, I'm sure Abraham's sentiment was, you got to be kidding. It doesn't make any sense. It seems unreasonable. We see now what God had in mind, but Abraham couldn't. We see Angel Gabriel going to Zechariah and saying, hey, your elderly wife is going to have a baby. You got to be kidding. No, he wasn't kidding. We're dead serious. This is important. Even though it seems unreasonable, unnatural, a bit too much, counterintuitive. I also think that even St. Joseph, when Mary becomes pregnant, his own friends, after telling them the circumstances around her pregnancy, they might have responded with, you're kidding, you're kidding. But I think for me, the most powerful one is the rich young man who approaches Jesus. I think the rich young man who says, hey, what does it take to be saved? I think he was fishing for a compliment. He's fishing for a compliment. Hey, you follow the commandments. Hey, I do that. I do that. And then Jesus says something to him and knocks him backwards. For you, I want you to sell everything. Come and follow me. Face to face, the Master, the God-man, the Logos, the Son of God, God the Son, personally asks a man to be his disciple. And what happens? His face drops, he turns pale, and probably said something like, you got to be kidding. You got to be kidding. I can't do that. It's usually afterwards when we've been asked to do something that may seem unreasonable, uncomfortable, inconvenient, that sometimes the profoundness comes to light. When I first got here to St. Luke, 2018, that summer was when the second round of priest scandals hit, 2018. It was a tough summer again. And Bishop Vasquez at the time asked all of us priests to do a reparation, to go in front of the Blessed Sacrament for an hour. I was like, oh, okay, we do that. We do that anyway. And then it was requested that we go spend an hour in front of the Blessed Sacrament at 3 a.m. That's right, get up at 2:30, get dressed, set up the monstrance, and be the only one. Why? Because it was inconvenient. It was uncomfortable. But it was fitting that we would do such a penance for our brothers who had sinned so grievously, to do penance for them, to make ourselves uncomfortable and inconvenient. Only now does that really make sense. At the time, all of us were in chorus. You got to be kidding. 3 o'clock in the morning. But today, as we remember Christ's baptism, I would say it's a good time to remind ourselves, even if we don't remember it, of our own baptism. Many of you were babies, not all of you, but many of you were babies at your baptism. And to remember what happened there. Well, I'll tell you what happened there. You were saved. I was saved. Something happened to us. It wasn't just a symbol of some past conversion. The water has a power, it's charged with God. And even if it was not your faith, but your parents' faith, that's enough. We see that even in the miracles when Jesus looks at the paralytic and he sees his family's faith and he saves him after seeing their faith. So when anybody asks you, especially in kind of where we live now, are you saved? Tell them yes. Especially if you were baptized and said, I was saved at my baptism. Now, if you have family members or friends or evangelical Protestants, they might say, are you kidding? Water doesn't do that. We believe it does. Water saves lives. The Israelites were saved through water of the Red Sea. Noah's family was saved through water. It's nothing new. But that presupposes that when we were baptized as babies, and when we do baptize babies, that we engender, nurture, cultivate the love of Christ into that child, letting him or her know who he has become. Because for many of us who were babies, we were probably asleep or screaming. We didn't care. But something happened to us. And I appreciate even the process of preparing a family for baptism for their little one. Because now we have a chance to even have a conversion amongst them. If they approach the office, they bring the little baby in, they want our baby baptized. Fine, that's great. We usually ask them to go take a class. Deacon teaches these classes. Now, usually they're okay with that. But they need at least one godparent. And then they find out that the godparent has to be a Catholic in good standing. Sometimes they say and ask, you've got to be kidding. They'll have a neighbor who's a nice person. Oh, these are lifelong good friends of ours, but they're Methodists. Nothing against Methodists. We want them to be the godparents. No, they have to be Catholics in good standing. To which the ball is back in our court. We can offer, would they like to be Catholic? We can help them with that. Or they want, again, my friend Uncle Nacho, they want Uncle Nacho to be the godfather. But oh yeah, Uncle Nacho's living with his girlfriend. Can he be the godparent? No, he can't. Unless Uncle Nacho moves out. Would Uncle Nacho like to get married in the church? We can help him with that too. It's always an invitation to conversion, especially amongst the family. Now I have a family friend who was Catholic, got married to a nice girl. She was not Catholic. She wasn't even baptized. But she was approached by some family members, would you be the godmother of our baby? And she was excited. Yes, I would love to be the godmother. They approached the church, found out no, she can't be the godmother. And then she called me. She said, well, why not? And she said the same thing. No. Well, I said, well, you're not Catholic, you're not baptized. She said, you got to be kidding. You're telling me no? No, I'm telling you no. unless you'd like to become Catholic. I can do that myself. I don't know where that happened or what happened with all of that. Because we are not a church of convenience or accommodation. We try to sometimes. We're oftentimes the church of inconvenience. And that's okay, because anything worthwhile involves a little sacrifice. So we remember our baptisms today, and then we remember that there was usually, for all of us, a little community around that baptismal font. And that what happens, what's most important is what happens to that child when they are, well, this is what the Catechism says. They're adopted, born again, enlightened, new creature, justified, incorporated into the church. That's a lot. That's amazing. They're born again. They're regenerated. They're now Christians. But also those 3 or 4 adults, vows, that's where the second commandment kicks in. Do not take the Lord's name in vain. Because to swear to God, to make a vow, and to go against it invites curses. To adhere to the vows that we make invites blessings. Invites blessings. And then we turn to the godparents. Godparents, are you ready to help these parents to raise this child Catholic? We are. They're making vows, sacred vows. They may not realize it, but they're entering into a covenant relationship. Now, every once in a while they realize that. And that's always good. Sometimes they say, no, maybe this is not for me. Every once in a while at confirmation retreats, when the confirmation candidates, usually one of the 2 more astute ones, will say, confirmation means I have to defend and spread the faith by word and deed and mind. I have to be like an evangelizer. Yes, it's exactly what it means. Every once in a while, they'll say, you got to be kidding. No, I'm not kidding. And sometimes they back off and say, maybe we're not ready. I respect that. Why? Because they got it. Because they got it. Now, sometimes we do ask God for silly things. Sometimes we ask him for things that he may not answer the way we want. I have seen way too many times. I've been at too many football stadiums where the football players get out to, the kicker is trying to get a 3-point field goal, and his entire team is on their knees going, please God, let him make it. And the entire other team is saying, please God, let him miss. And there's God saying, you've got to be kidding. That's not what I'm talking about. But today we can hopefully pray for the grace to enkindle in us and nurture and enliven our baptismal graces. Because at our baptism we were adopted, born again, enlightened, made new creatures, justified before God, incorporated into the church, and become living stones of the church. And there's even more. Because after they're baptized, we stick our thumbs in some oil, and we smear it on the baby and remind them that they are anointed priest, prophet, and king. We're not joking. That's for real. Priest, prophet, and king. And this is all very important. It's because we're announced to the world that something has happened to us. And then when we ask God to do just that, when our petition is, please enliven in us our baptismal graces, the answer is always, always, always yes.